Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Lewis Speaks 2024, and today I want to talk to you all about the silent treatment. What exactly is the silent treatment? Well, the silent treatment is when a person refuses to engage you in communication. They refuse to talk to you. They refuse to reply to your texts, emails, phone calls, numerous messages. They just shut down and they go silent. And oftentimes, this can be very painful, especially when you are close with this person or close with these people. Um, in my estimation, the silent treatment is a form of psychological violence. It often takes place after a very difficult exchange. And oftentimes, when people are not seeing eye to eye, one or both parties may just retreat into this form of silence. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a form of psychological violence. It's a form of emotional violence because oftentimes it's used as a tool to make the other person feel off balance, make the other person feel unsure and uncertain about the relationship. And in some cases, people use the silent treatment as a way of eliciting more attention, as a way of eliciting more investment and involvement. See, they think that when they disappear, when they go ghost, and they pull these disappearing acts, it's going to make you try harder. And oftentimes, the silent treatment, truth be told, it will trigger your wounds. For those who may have experienced abandonment when they were younger, it might trigger your abandonment wounds. And so it may cause you to initially reach out more and try harder and call more as a way to break through, as a way to avoid that discomfort. Personally, me, I don't do that. When a person makes it clear that they don't want to talk to me, or they go ghost, or they pull disappearing acts and they engage in this silent treatment, I completely withdraw. I avoid the person. I refuse to entertain such bullery. I refuse to entertain such bullery. That is the fastest way a person can lose my friendship. And with some people, you have made this clear to them, but they continue to use the silent treatment as a weapon. They want to weaponize silence. And so people like that, you have to learn, for one, you hold space, right? You hold space, and you hold space for empathy. You empathize and you can understand that they might be hurt, they might be upset, they might need time, and that's understandable. But while you empathize with them, you also take the necessary steps to take care of yourself. No one should tolerate this form of emotional abuse at all. If you have made it clear to the person that such abusive behavior is hurtful and they continue to do it, that person doesn't value you. They prioritize their own feelings. And so it's time for you to do the same. You have to learn how to take care of yourself, especially when people try to use this tactic, because it's a very, very manipulative tactic. It's a tool of manipulation that a lot of people use. I notice couples use this too in their marriages. They oftentimes will give each other the silent treatment. And that can be very dangerous. It can be very toxic, because what ends up happening is that you seek that validation, that communication outside of the relationship. You begin to look for other avenues where you can get that love, support, and attention. And that can lead to emotional infidelity and ultimately just physical infidelity, you know? So I think that the silent treatment, especially within the context of marriage, can be very dangerous, but also with friends and family. If you have friends and family that engage in this type of behavior, it's a way of invalidating your existence. It's saying in but so many words that you don't exist, you don't matter, you are irrelevant. And that's why it's such a psychological form of violence, because it's communicating your unworthiness in their eyes. And that's why I don't put up with it. When people want to engage in the silent treatment, I say, go ahead, you do you. But when I'm ready to talk, then I'll communicate. When I basically have, worked things out within myself, then I'll come back to you. It's not about when they're ready to talk and when they're ready to re-engage you. Because when you try to work things out, I'm the type of person that will try to work things out like that. You know, I try to work things out like that. There have been times where I also have fallen back. I've fallen back because I've waited for other people, other friends, other family members to actually take the initiative in having the difficult conversations. But a lot of times I find that I have to be the one to broach the topic. I have to be the one to initiate these very uncomfortable conversations. And over time, that gets really, really annoying. When you feel as though you always have to be the one to apologize, always have to be the one to jumpstart the reconciliation, you know? You wonder that if you didn't do that, if you were not the one to initiate these conversations, would they happen? Would the other person just disappear? Would they be comfortable with no longer speaking to you ever again? You wonder. You also wonder if you're the only person in the relationship or friendship or whatever have you, if you're the only one that's invested. You know, you question whether or not you are the only one that's invested. And so that's not healthy. If you always find that you're the only one if you're the only one always having to initiate the confrontations, always having to initiate these difficult conversations, well then that lets you know that your friendship with someone is only living because of the energy that you put into it. The only reason why some people are friends, let's be honest, is because one person is doing all the heavy lifting, is doing all the calling, the texting, the efforts to reconcile. That's not fair. It's not fair. And so my thing is this. Once again, when people give you the silent treatment, you definitely have empathy. You understand what that's like. They're feeling things and they need some space to process, right? I get it. But at the same time, it's not about always focusing on what they need, right? You have to also focus on yourself, especially if you're an empath. If you're an empath, the tendency is to always try to take care of other people. Always try to imagine what they might need. And when you constantly do that, you are abandoning yourself. You are ignoring your own needs. And over time, that leads to resentment. So my thing is this, if a person, they gave you the silent treatment, you had the conversation with them that such behavior is hurtful, and they continue to engage in that behavior, well then what happens is this. You're going to have to distance yourself, for one. You're also going to have to reevaluate the level of closeness that you can offer a person, you know, because it might not be safe, you know. And what I'm learning, especially related to trauma, is that oftentimes the first step is to provide a safe space, safety, you know, and then stabilization. But first comes safety. You have to be safe with someone. It may not be safe to be that close with someone who does not value what you have to say and does not value your feelings, you know, especially when you make repeated efforts to try to reach out, repeated efforts to try to reconcile, and the person just, there's radio silence. You hear nothing from them. All you hear is the crickets, basically. So my thing is this. If they want, like I said, if they want to basically be silent, that's well within their rights, but you also reserve the right not to deal with such emotional violence. And I'm realizing that a lot of people nowadays, they use the silent treatment as a way to keep people off balance, right? They use it as a tool to manipulate other people and manipulate and control. That's another thing. People use that as a tool to control people's behavior. They feel as though if I ignore them enough, they'll keep on chasing after me. Well, no. My thing is this, I'm not the type to chase person. I don't chase. I replace. That's my thing. I don't chase after people. I put forth an effort, a genuine effort, and if after that effort I see that you are trying to take advantage of the situation or you're trying to exploit my interest or my investment, that's when I have to move in another direction. because you can't. You can't. You know, adults communicate their feelings. Adults have difficult conversations. They're able to regulate their emotions. They're able to tolerate that uncomfortable conversation. They're able to tolerate discomfort. You know, adults have that ability to regulate and manage their emotions. And if you're dealing with somebody who is emotionally underdeveloped, who is emotionally immature, and cannot do that, well, then you're going to have to actually, you're going to have to move on. You're going to have to move on. Especially after you have communicated with that person how hurtful. I always say this. The first time, I get it. The person didn't know. So we need to have that conversation about how the silent treatment is affecting me, right? And so when I have that, after I've had that conversation, they continue to do that behavior, well, then it's time to reevaluate whether or not I want this person in my world. Because I'm not going to sit up here and be kept off balance and be made, and I'm not going to always sit up here and have to wonder whether or not we're going to communicate again. No, that's uncomfortable. That's the equivalent of walking on eggshells in your relationships, and you should never walk on eggshells in your relationships. If you can't have open, honest communication that's based on trust, that's based on mutuality, that's based on respect, well, then there's an issue there. And will you always agree with the person's assessment? No, you won't. You realize that a lot of people are not on your level in terms of emotional maturity. You know, a lot of people, they will, instead of taking accountability for their poor behaviors and for their toxic behaviors, what they do is run, they hide because they are ashamed. They project. There's a lot of that. People project their own feelings of insecurity onto another person. They displace rather than taking that, you know, that constructive feedback and doing something with it. They'll blame you. Oh, you're the reason, you're the reason, you're the reason. Just a lot of toxicity and a lot of blaming behavior. And I think if people spent more time taking ownership of their role in certain relational difficulties, then they would be in better shape. They would be in better shape. But you have to realize also, people are where they are in life because of who they are and also who they refuse to be. People are where they are in life because of who they are and who they refuse to be. And what they refuse to take accountability for. You know, I'll add that as well, you know. And so you have to remember that. And so my thing is this. It's just about dealing with people who can have that conversation. Are people perfect? No, they're not perfect. Are there going to be some difficulties? Yes, there are. But if you notice a pattern, and this is the key word, if you notice a pattern where people continuously utilize the silent treatment as a tool to try and retaliate and get even, you know, and seek revenge, then you're going to have to basically distance yourself from that person because they're taking you out of your comfort zone. They are causing you to become someone that you don't want to become. And so if anybody out there has experienced the silent treatment, trust and believe you are not alone. There are so many of us going through that, especially right now in this day and age. A lot of people, they ghost you. They don't take ownership for their poor behaviors. They rather just go silent for a while, then reappear and then act like that's the equivalent of an apology, right? But it's not. I'm here to tell you that it's not. And when people try that with me, I say this: you will always leave me right where you found me. You know what I'm saying? But not even that. You always find me right where you leave me. You will always find me. So if you left me at a very, very unsettled place where there was no apology given, guess what? You're going to find me at that exact location waiting to hear a sincere apology and also amends. And the thing about it is, don't wait too late, because as you wait, the resentment builds. Be quick, as the scriptures say, be quick about settling matters, you know? Don't let it fester. Don't let it build and ruminate, because when you do that, what ends up happening is that it erodes the trust. It undermines the integrity of the relationship. It makes the person question whether or not the person is a friend in the first place. Was the person ever my friend if they didn't feel comfortable or safe coming to me about certain behaviors? So it's food for thought. Definitely food for thought. You know, if you are the type of person that also gives the silent treatment, you need to reevaluate that. And you need to also do your work. You know, try and understand why you find it easier to give the silent treatment as opposed to confront difficult situations. Because that can also be a trauma response. You know, we talk about flight, right? In fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Those are the four main trauma responses. And so oftentimes people who have trouble dealing with very difficult situations, they tend to flight. They tend to seek refuge by leaving, you know, and that's problematic. That's problematic, especially when you're in relationships with your friends and family and also your partners, you know? If you think that you can just dissolve a relationship at the first sign of trouble, then you should not be in relationships, because there's always going to be something. There's always going to be something. And learning how to deal with the difficult times, learning how to deal with those difficult moments, that's what makes the relationship stronger. So I hope that this landed safely on your hearts. For those who are the victims of the silent treatment, it's time you do your work. It's time you set those boundaries. It's time you let other people know that such behavior is not okay. And if they continue to do that, then they will no longer have you in their lives. It's time for you to actually start taking care of yourself. If you're currently in the midst of this with a friend, a family member, a partner, what you need to do, give them time, right? If this is your first experience with this, give them time. Reconvene and let them know that that behavior is not acceptable. Let them know the expectation. The expectation is that when you're having difficulties, you talk with one another immediately. And if they can't honor that, that's fine. You have to determine whether or not you want to live with that. Because some people, they can live with that, and that's fine. Me personally, I can't live with that. Communication is everything to me. It's my life's blood. And so if you choose not to communicate, you want to shut down, you want to, stonewall, that's your right. But you won't be doing that with me. And that's my boundary. So once again, it's about you setting those boundaries in order to have healthy relationships based on mutuality and mutual respect. So I hope this video was helpful, y'all. Thanks for listening. Peace.